Have you ever felt an undeniable pull toward older men, one that goes beyond simple preference? Maybe you've questioned why you're so drawn to their presence, their wisdom, or the way they carry themselves. What if this attraction isn't just random, but a window into your deepest psychological patterns? Carl Jung, the legendary psychoanalyst, believed that our unconscious mind holds the keys to understanding desire. According to his theories, attraction is never just about surface-level chemistry. It's shaped by hidden archetypes, unresolved complexes, and the silent whispers of our psyche. Jung introduced concepts like the animus, the inner masculine energy in women, and the father complex, which can shape why some women feel an intense magnetic pull toward older partners. This isn't just about societal norms or personal taste. It's about deep, often unconscious forces guiding who we love and why. In this video, we'll uncover 6 psychological signs, rooted in Jung's work, that reveal whether your attraction to older men is more than just chance. By the end, you might see your relationships in a whole new light, one where psychology, not just emotion, holds the answers. Sign 1. You seek emotional security and maturity. The attraction to emotional security and maturity in older men isn't merely a preference. It's often a profound psychological pattern rooted in the unconscious. Carl Jung's concept of the wise old man archetype plays a crucial role here. This archetype represents wisdom, guidance, and stability, qualities that many older men naturally embody through lived experience. When a woman is drawn to this energy, it's not just about age, it's about the deep-seated need for emotional grounding that may have been missing in earlier stages of life. Jung believed that our unconscious seeks balance, and if there was an absence of stability in childhood, perhaps due to an emotionally distant or absent father, the psyche may later gravitate toward partners who fill that void. This phenomenon, known as the father complex, explains why some women feel an almost magnetic pull toward older men who exude calm assurance and emotional depth. It's not just about finding a partner, it's about unconsciously seeking the security that was once lacking. For many women, this manifests in a clear distinction between how they perceive older and younger men. While younger partners might bring excitement and spontaneity, they can also feel unpredictable or emotionally underdeveloped in comparison. There's a sense of safety that comes with being with someone who has weathered life's challenges, who knows how to navigate conflict with patience, and who offers reassurance without unnecessary drama. This isn't to say that older men are inherently more mature, but life experience often cultivates a steadiness that feels irreplaceable. If you've ever found yourself frustrated by partners your own age, dismissing them as too immature or not serious enough, this could be your unconscious mind signaling a deeper need for emotional anchoring. Jungian psychology suggests that these attractions are rarely accidental. The unconscious mind recognizes symbols and patterns before the conscious mind can articulate them. An older man's ability to provide stability may resonate with something far older within the psyche, an archetypal longing for the protector, the mentor, or the wise guide. This dynamic isn't about dependency, it's about resonance. When a woman feels truly seen and understood by an older partner, it's often because he reflects the qualities her unconscious has been seeking all along. The sense of safety isn't just about physical or financial security, it's about emotional reliability, the kind that makes her feel she can exhale, knowing she won't have to constantly manage another person's unresolved turbulence. This attraction can also reveal something about personal growth. Women who value emotional maturity in partners often prioritize self-awareness in themselves. They may have outgrown the roller coaster of unstable relationships and now seek a connection that feels solid, where communication is clear and intentions are grounded. If you've ever noticed that older men seem to get you in ways others don't, it could be because they've had the time to develop the emotional intelligence that aligns with your own depth. Jung would argue that this isn't coincidence. It's the unconscious guiding you toward what you need for psychological wholeness. Of course, this doesn't mean that attraction to older men is solely about filling a paternal void. It's more nuanced than that. For some, it's about the allure of a partner who has already navigated the uncertainties of youth and emerged with a stronger sense of self. There's a quiet confidence that comes with age, a lack of need to prove oneself, which can be incredibly appealing. If you find yourself valuing these traits above all else, it's worth exploring what they represent for you on a deeper level. Are you seeking a partner? Or are you seeking the emotional equilibrium that comes with wisdom? The answer might reveal more about your own journey than you realize. Ultimately, this attraction speaks to a universal human longing, the desire for safety, understanding, and emotional reciprocity. Jung's theories remind us that love and desire are never just surface level. They're woven into the fabric of our unconscious, shaped by our past, our archetypes, and the silent forces that guide us toward what we need most. If you see yourself in this pattern, it's not just a preference, it's a reflection of your psyche's wisdom, leading you toward the kind of connection that nurtures your growth. Sign 2. You're drawn to authority and guidance. The attraction to authority and guidance in older men reveals a fascinating psychological dynamic that goes far beyond surface-level preference. At its core, this pull speaks to the way our unconscious mind seeks completion through relationships, particularly through what Carl Jung called the animus, the inner masculine energy within a woman's psyche. For many women, this animus manifests as a deep appreciation for men who embody knowledge, leadership, and the ability to provide direction. There's something profoundly compelling about a partner who not only understands the world with clarity but can also help navigate its complexities. This isn't about submission or power imbalance. Rather, it's about resonance with an archetype of masculine energy that feels both grounding and inspiring. When an older man carries himself with quiet authority, shares wisdom without condescension, or offers guidance born of experience, it activates something primal within the feminine psyche, a recognition of complementary energies coming into balance. Jungian psychology suggests that this attraction often stems from an unconscious recognition of the mentor archetype, a figure who represents both knowledge and the ability to transmit it meaningfully. In ancient myths and stories across cultures, we see this dynamic repeatedly, the wise elder guiding the younger seeker, not through domination but through earned respect and genuine insight. When a woman finds herself drawn to older men who naturally occupy this role, it may indicate that her own animus is seeking integration through external reflection. The men who captivate her attention likely possess qualities she's developing within herself: confidence, decisiveness, intellectual depth, but hasn't yet fully embodied. This creates a magnetic pull toward those who can model these traits while simultaneously making her feel recognized in her own potential. There's a unique alchemy in these connections where admiration and personal growth intertwine, where being seen by someone with more life experience validates one's own emerging strengths. For women who relate to this pattern, interactions with older male partners often feel strikingly different from those with peers. Conversations carry more weight. Exchanges feel more substantive. There's a sense that when an older man speaks, his words come from a place of hard-won understanding rather than speculation or posturing. This creates an environment where a woman might feel she can finally lower certain defenses, the constant need to explain herself or justify her perspectives, because she's engaging with someone who grasps nuance without requiring exhaustive clarification. Many women describe feeling understood on a different level with older partners, as if these men possess an intuitive map to their thoughts and emotions. Jung would argue this isn't accidental. The unconscious recognizes its counterpart, creating a sense of familiarity that transcends chronological age. The professional sphere often illuminates this dynamic most clearly. Women drawn to authoritative older men frequently report profound learning experiences in mentor-protege relationships, where the transfer of knowledge becomes almost secondary to the more subtle transmission of confidence and approach. In these connections, the older man's guidance doesn't diminish the younger woman's autonomy. Paradoxically, it strengthens it by providing a stable foundation from which to grow. This mirrors Jung's concept of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming one's complete self, which often requires external mirrors to reflect back our latent capabilities. When an older partner or mentor believes in a woman's potential before she fully does herself, it creates a powerful psychological catalyst for self-actualization. Yet this attraction also contains important shadows worth examining. The unconscious yearning for guidance can sometimes mask unresolved dependencies or unhealed wounds around personal authority. Jung cautioned that archetypal energies, when not consciously integrated, could lead to projection, assigning all wisdom or decision-making capacity to the older partner rather than cultivating it within oneself. Women who notice they consistently defer to older men's opinions or feel unable to trust their own judgment without male validation might be encountering this shadow aspect. The healthiest manifestations of this attraction occur when the older partner's guidance ultimately empowers rather than creates reliance, when his role is to reflect back her own inner authority rather than replace it. Cultural narratives have long romanticized the older mentor-younger protege dynamic, from mythology to modern storytelling, which speaks to its deep roots in our collective unconscious. But in real-world relationships, the most fulfilling connections balance guidance with mutual growth. The older man who remains a perpetual teacher without learning from his partner stagnates the relationship's potential. Conversely, the most vibrant partnerships allow the wisdom to flow both ways, where his life experience meets her fresh perspective in a dialogue that enriches both. This reciprocity transforms what could be a hierarchical dynamic into something far more profound, a meeting of minds and spirits where age difference becomes irrelevant to the essential connection. Ultimately, the draw toward authoritative older men reveals much about a woman's psychological landscape, her values, her growth edges, and how she relates to power and knowledge within herself. When this attraction is conscious and examined, it can lead to relationships that foster remarkable personal evolution. The key lies in recognizing whether the pull comes from a place of wholeness seeking its counterpart, or from unfinished business with one's own authority. Either way, as Jung would remind us, these powerful attractions always have something to teach us about ourselves. Sign 3. You have a strong nurturing instinct. The interplay between nurturing instincts and attraction to older men reveals one of the more profound yet often overlooked dynamics in romantic psychology. At first glance, society might assume relationships with age gaps revolve around the older partner providing care and stability, but Jungian analysis uncovers a far more nuanced truth. Many women experience deep fulfillment in offering tenderness and support to mature partners. This phenomenon connects to what Jung termed the Great Mother archetype, a primordial energy representing compassion, nourishment, and emotional sustenance. When this archetype activates in attraction patterns, it creates a compelling duality. The older man is simultaneously respected for his strength and experience, yet cherished for his human vulnerabilities. There's something deeply satisfying about this balance of power and tenderness, where the relationship transcends conventional caregiver roles to become a mutual exchange of strength and softness. This nurturing impulse often manifests in subtle but meaningful ways, preparing meals with special attention to his preferences, remembering small details about his needs, or offering emotional support during challenging moments. These acts of care aren't about mothering or infantilizing. Rather, they represent a sacred form of intimacy where the woman's capacity to nurture meets the older man's willingness to receive it. In a culture that often conditions men, especially older men, to constantly project invulnerability, the ability to safely lower those defenses with a partner can create profound bonding. Many women report feeling an intensified emotional connection when their older partner allows himself to be cared for, not because he's incapable, but because he trusts her enough to show dimensions of himself that others rarely see. This vulnerability becomes the glue that transforms physical attraction into soul-level connection. Jung would interpret this dynamic as the harmonious interplay between archetypal energies, the masculine wisdom of the older partner dancing with the feminine nurturing of his counterpart. Unlike relationships where age peers might compete in caregiving roles, the age gap dynamic often allows these energies to flow more naturally, without societal expectations distorting their expression. The woman doesn't nurture out of obligation or traditional gender roles, but because the relationship creates a container where this aspect of her femininity can flourish authentically. Simultaneously, the older man's life experience often makes him more receptive to care, having moved beyond youthful insecurities that might interpret nurturing as emasculating. This creates a rare emotional ecosystem where both partners can give and receive in ways that feel organic rather than performative. The psychological roots of this attraction pattern frequently trace back to early relational blueprints. Women who grew up in environments where they provided emotional support to parents or family members may find this caregiving role feels like home in their adult relationships. However, with an older partner, the dynamic shifts importantly. She's not recapitulating childhood patterns, but rather engaging in a conscious, mutual exchange between equals. The key distinction lies in reciprocity. Healthy manifestations of this dynamic allow the woman to receive just as much as she gives, with the older partner's maturity enabling him to recognize and value her emotional labor. This differs markedly from one-sided caregiving scenarios where the woman's needs become secondary. Interestingly, this nurturing instinct toward older men often coexists with admiration for their competence and life mastery, creating what psychologists call the competence vulnerability paradox. The same man who commands respect in professional spheres or handles crises with steady wisdom might also be the one who cherishes having his neck massaged after a long day or appreciates when his partner anticipates his needs. This juxtaposition holds powerful erotic and emotional charge, the integration of strength and softness, capability and receptivity. It breaks the false dichotomy that one must be either strong or vulnerable, instead embracing the full spectrum of human experience. For many women, witnessing and tending to this completeness in an older partner satisfies something primal in their own psyche, the archetypal longing to love wholly, beyond superficial projections. The shadow aspect of this dynamic emerges when nurturing crosses into overfunctioning or loss of self, when the pleasure in caring for another overshadows attention to one's own needs. Jungian wisdom would caution against using caregiving as a means of securing love or avoiding confrontation with one's own unmet needs. The healthiest expressions of this instinct maintain clear boundaries, where nurturing flows from abundance rather than depletion, from choice rather than compulsion. Women most fulfilled in these relationships often describe a sense of joyful giving that expects nothing in return, yet paradoxically receives deeper connection precisely because it wasn't demanded. In the broader context of feminine psychology, this attraction pattern speaks to the timeless dance between giving and receiving that defines so much of women's relational experience. With an older partner, the nurturing instinct finds particularly fertile ground. His emotional maturity typically allows him to receive care without guilt, to acknowledge it without obligation, and to reciprocate in ways that may surprise women accustomed to less secure partners. The result is a relationship that honors the full spectrum of human connection, where wisdom meets tenderness, where strength embraces vulnerability, and where the simple acts of daily care become the silent language of profound intimacy. Ultimately, this nurturing attraction to older men reveals a deep truth about the feminine psyche, that love, at its highest expression, seeks not just to admire from afar but to know and cherish every dimension of the beloved. When this impulse emerges consciously and healthily, it creates relationships that transcend societal judgments about age, becoming instead living embodiments of how love can be both sanctuary and adventure, both comfort and growth. As with all powerful archetypal patterns, the key lies in maintaining awareness, ensuring that the impulse to nurture serves the relationship rather than defines it, and that in caring for another, one never loses sight of caring for oneself. Sign 4. You value deep conversations over superficial connections. The craving for substantial, meaningful dialogue with an older partner reveals one of the most psychologically rich dimensions of this attraction pattern. At its core, this preference points to what Jung called the transcendent function, the psyche's innate drive to move beyond superficial interactions and toward connections that spark genuine self-discovery. When a woman finds herself consistently bored by small talk and electrified by conversations with older men, she's not simply being intellectually pretentious, she's responding to a deep archetypal recognition. Older partners, by virtue of having navigated more seasons of life, often carry what Jung termed individuation, that hard-won self-knowledge that comes from confronting life's complexities. There's a qualitative difference in how they discuss ideas, relationships, and existential questions, not as theoretical abstractions but as lived experiences they've metabolized over time. This creates a conversational landscape where every exchange feels potentially revelatory, where even casual discussions can unexpectedly touch profound depths. This dynamic reflects the sacred interplay between what Jung described as the anima, a man's inner feminine, and animus, a woman's inner masculine, when both partners have done their inner work. The older man's ability to engage authentically at this level signals that his anima, his capacity for emotional depth, intuition, and relational intelligence, has been consciously developed rather than repressed. Similarly, the woman whose animus expresses itself through intellectual curiosity and truth-seeking finds in him a worthy conversational partner who doesn't feel threatened by her depth but rather challenged and inspired by it. Their dialogues become a kind of alchemical vessel where thoughts and feelings are refined into greater wisdom, a process far removed from the performative debates or hollow banter that plagues so many modern relationships. Women who resonate with this sign often describe a particular frustration with age-peer relationships where conversations seem to skate along life's surface. With older partners, there's a palpable shift. Suddenly, discussions about a film become explorations of human nature, debates about politics transform into examinations of power and morality, even playful teasing carries layers of shared understanding. This isn't about intellectual superiority but about what psychologist James Hollis calls the privilege of a lifetime, the perspective that comes from having witnessed cycles of cultural change, personal transformation, and the slow unraveling of one's own illusions. An older partner who has done his inner work brings to conversations what no textbook or podcast ever could, the weight of lived experience balanced with the humility of knowing how much remains unknowable. The neurological dimension of this attraction warrants consideration as well. Research in interpersonal neurobiology shows that stimulating conversation actually creates measurable synchronization between partners' brain waves, a phenomenon particularly pronounced when discussing meaningful topics rather than trivialities. When an older man's wealth of experience meets a younger woman's cognitive flexibility and fresh perspective, their dialogues can produce a unique cognitive-emotional synergy. This may explain why women describe these conversations as not just mentally engaging but physically energizing. The meeting of minds becomes its own form of intimacy, sometimes even preceding physical closeness. In Jungian terms, this is the anima and animus dancing in real time, each partner drawing out the other's latent capacities through the alchemy of authentic exchange. Yet this preference for depth carries its own shadows that merit examination. The disdain for small talk can sometimes mask impatience with the ordinary rhythms of human connection, the very mundanity that makes up most of shared life. Jung himself cautioned against spiritual bypassing, using philosophical or intellectual discourse to avoid confronting simpler relational needs or unresolved emotional patterns. Women most balanced in this attraction recognize that while profound conversation nourishes the mind and soul, truly deep relationships also find meaning in quiet togetherness, in the unspoken understandings that require no elaborate articulation. The healthiest versions of this dynamic allow space for both, for discussions that stretch into dawn and for comfortable silences that need no filling. Cultural context further enriches our understanding of this phenomenon. In an era dominated by digital superficiality and attention fragmentation, the ability to sustain focused, meaningful conversation has become a rare intimacy, one that older generations often cultivated through pre-internet socialization patterns. The older partner who can put aside his phone, maintain eye contact, and follow a thought to its logical conclusion without mental multitasking embodies an increasingly precious form of presence. For the woman starved of such undivided attention in other areas of her life, these conversations become not just pleasurable but restorative, a reminder of how human connection is meant to feel when stripped of performative distractions. Ultimately, this attraction to conversational depth with older men points to a fundamental human longing, to be known and understood at levels that transcend biographical details or surface opinions. When a woman finds herself repeatedly drawn to these substantial exchanges, she's honoring what Jung considered the highest purpose of relationship, to serve as a mirror for soul growth. In these moments of genuine meeting, where words bridge inner worlds and differences in age become irrelevant to the meeting of minds, we touch what ancient traditions called logos, the sacred principle of meaningful connection that underlies all lasting intimacy. The practical implication is both simple and profound. When you find someone with whom silence feels as rich as speech, and every conversation unveils new layers of understanding, you've encountered one of life's rarest gifts, a partner who doesn't just talk to you, but truly sees you. Sign 5. You associate older men with protection and safety. The profound sense of safety and protection many women experience with older partners taps into some of the most primal archetypes within the collective unconscious. This attraction extends far beyond practical considerations of financial stability or physical security. It represents a soul-level recognition of the sacred protector energy that has guided human pair bonding since ancient times. Jung's exploration of archetypes reveals how the king and warrior motifs manifest in masculine energy, not as domineering forces but as expressions of mature masculine responsibility. When an older man embodies these archetypes healthily, demonstrating strength without aggression, authority without oppression, and protectiveness without possession, it activates a deep feminine response that transcends conscious reasoning. There's an almost biological recognition occurring, as if cellular memory recalls a time when such protection meant survival itself, when a mate's ability to safeguard the family unit determined whether children would thrive. This dynamic becomes particularly potent for women who experience childhood instability, whether through economic hardship, emotional unpredictability, or physical insecurity. The psyche, in its brilliant compensatory nature, often seeks in adulthood what was missing in formative years. An older partner's steady presence can symbolically represent the security that should have been a birthright, his consistent behavior repairing, in small daily ways, the neural pathways formed by earlier chaos. This isn't about dependency or daddy issues, as pop psychology might reductively claim, but about the unconscious mind's drive toward wholeness. When a woman from such background describes feeling held emotionally or physically by an older partner, she's articulating something far more profound than romantic sentiment. She's describing the visceral relief of the nervous system finally encountering the stability it was wired to expect but never received. The protective attraction manifests in both tangible and subtle ways. There's the obvious comfort of being with someone who knows how to handle emergencies, who moves through the world with situational awareness, who possesses the emotional regulation to remain calm during crises. Yet the more psychologically interesting aspects emerge in the quieter moments. The way he places a hand at the small of her back when navigating crowded spaces, how he remembers to check the locks at night without being asked, the unspoken understanding that he will handle logistical complexities so she can focus on creative or relational priorities. These behaviors create an environment where the feminine can fully relax, not into passivity but into the freedom that comes with knowing someone capable has life's practicalities handled. Jungian analysis would highlight how this attraction balances archetypal energies, the mature masculine's protective capacity allowing the feminine's receptive and creative aspects to flourish without constant vigilance. In our modern context where traditional gender roles have rightly evolved, this dynamic sometimes creates cognitive dissonance for intellectually independent women who nonetheless feel this primal pull. The resolution lies in understanding that valuing protection doesn't negate self-sufficiency any more than enjoying being cooked for negates one's ability to feed oneself. The healthiest expressions of this attraction occur when the woman maintains full autonomy while appreciating her partner's protective qualities as gifts rather than requirements for survival. The shadow aspect emerges when the need for safety becomes a cage rather than a foundation, when the relationship stifles growth under the guise of protection. Jung warned repeatedly about the dangers of remaining in the unconscious grip of archetypes without bringing them to light. Women most fulfilled in these relationships cultivate awareness around whether their attraction stems from a place of wholeness seeking its complement, or from unhealed wounds seeking a salve. The key distinction lies in whether the protective dynamic empowers both partners to grow, her feeling safe enough to expand her capabilities, him feeling valued enough to soften his edges. Cultural narratives have profoundly shaped our understanding of this attraction, often distorting it into caricatures of gold diggers or trophy wives. The psychological reality is infinitely more nuanced. Many high-achieving, financially independent women report this pull toward protective older partners precisely because their professional lives demand constant vigilance. Having a partner who provides emotional sanctuary allows them to temporarily lay down the armor required in competitive spaces. This speaks to a fundamental human need, the longing to occasionally surrender the burden of hyper-responsibility, to be cared for rather than always being the caregiver. In an era where traditional masculine virtues are often misunderstood or maligned, this attraction pattern serves as a quiet testament to the enduring human need for protective energy, not as control but as sacred responsibility. The women who resonate with this sign are often those who've experienced enough of life to appreciate the rarity of true, non-transactional protection, the kind that asks nothing in return but the privilege of providing. When this dynamic is conscious and balanced, it creates relationships where both partners experience profound fulfillment, he in exercising his hard-earned competence, she in being cherished without condition. This is the alchemy Jung described when archetypes manifest in their highest form, not as psychological crutches but as pathways to mutual becoming. Ultimately, this attraction to protective older men reveals a timeless truth about human connection, that at our core, beneath all our sophistication and independence, we remain creatures who need to feel safe in order to love fully. The women who honor this need in themselves are not weak or regressive, but profoundly honest about a vulnerability all humans share. In choosing partners who provide this sanctuary, they create the conditions for the deepest flowering of intimacy, the kind that grows only in the fertile soil of absolute security. As with all archetypal patterns, the wisdom lies in maintaining conscious awareness, ensuring that the walls that protect don't eventually imprison, and that the safety found in another eventually becomes the safety found within. Sign 6. You feel a mysterious, almost fateful pull. There exists a particular quality to the attraction some women feel toward older men that defies conventional explanation, a sense of inevitability, as if the connection was written into their life's story long before the actual meeting occurred. This mysterious pull transcends physical chemistry or logical compatibility, carrying instead the weight of something archetypal, something that seems to originate beyond conscious understanding. Jung's revolutionary concept of synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by cause and effect but carry profound personal significance, sheds light on this phenomenon. When a woman encounters an older man and feels an immediate, unexplainable recognition, as though she's known him forever despite having just met, she may be experiencing the unconscious perception of a symbolic match, a meeting that holds significance for her psychological development. These are the connections people describe as fated, where rational explanations fall short and intuition takes the lead. This inexplicable draw often connects to what Jung termed the unconscious compensation principle, the psyche's ability to recognize in another what we most need to integrate within ourselves. An older man might embody qualities a woman hasn't yet fully actualized, perhaps wisdom, emotional maturity, or self-assurance, making him magnetically compelling on a soul level. The attraction feels deeper than physical precisely because it is. It operates at the level of symbolic completion, where the unconscious recognizes in another person elements necessary for one's own psychological wholeness. Women who've experienced this describe knowing with certainty about a man's significance in their life long before concrete evidence emerges, trusting an inner guidance system that operates beyond linear logic. This explains why such attractions often persist despite practical obstacles or societal judgments. When the soul recognizes its counterpart, superficial concerns pale in comparison. The historical and mythological record brims with examples of these fateful attractions between younger women and older men, suggesting this pattern touches something fundamental in human experience. From Dante's Beatrice to Jung's own encounters with older mentors who shaped his thinking, these relationships frequently appear at pivotal moments of transformation, serving as catalysts for profound personal evolution. The older man in these dynamics often appears when the woman stands at a crossroads in her psychological development, ready to shed outdated versions of herself but needing the reflection only someone further along the path can provide. There's an alchemical quality to these meetings, as though the timing were orchestrated by some deeper intelligence within the psyche itself. Women who resonate with this sign often report a lifelong pattern of such attractions, tracing back to earliest crushes on teachers, family friends, or fictional characters that carried this older, wiser masculine energy. What might have been dismissed as a phase in adolescence reveals itself as a consistent thread through their relational history, not a random preference but an enduring archetypal pattern. These women frequently possess highly developed intuition and sensitivity to subtle energies, making them particularly receptive to the unconscious signals that announce these meaningful connections. Their challenge lies in distinguishing between genuine soul recognition and projection, between seeing a man clearly versus seeing what they long to find. The shadow aspect of this fateful attraction emerges when the sense of destiny blinds one to practical realities or red flags. Jung cautioned that numinous experiences, those carrying spiritual or archetypal charge, can overwhelm ego consciousness if not approached with discernment. The healthiest expressions of this attraction maintain a balance between honoring the mysterious pull and applying wise evaluation, allowing the heart to soar while the feet remain grounded. Women most skilled at navigating this dynamic develop what Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold both the magical and mundane aspects of the connection simultaneously. Modern attachment theory offers an interesting complement to Jung's perspective here. The intense, fateful quality of these attractions sometimes mirrors the limerence experienced in anxious preoccupied attachment, yet when examined closely, the archetypal version differs significantly. Where attachment-driven infatuation seeks to fill a void, the soul recognition described by Jung arises from a place of relative wholeness seeking its complement rather than its completion. The distinction lies in whether the attraction expands or diminishes one's sense of self, whether time with the older man leaves the woman feeling more herself or less. Cultural conditioning has often pathologized women's attractions to older men, dismissing them as daddy issues or gold-digging rather than recognizing their potential as sacred contracts between souls. The women who feel this mysterious pull frequently describe frustration at having their profound experiences reduced to clichés. They know in their bones that what they're feeling transcends Freudian complexes or material concerns. Their challenge becomes trusting this inner knowing while remaining clear-eyed about human imperfections, honoring the magic without ignoring the practical work all relationships require. Ultimately, this sixth sign represents the most numinous dimension of attraction to older men, the realm where psychology brushes against the mystical, where human connection becomes a doorway to self-discovery. When a woman encounters an older man who feels like both a homecoming and a horizon, she stands at the threshold of what Jung considered relationships' highest purpose: to serve as a mirror for individuation, a sacred reflection of all one is and all one might become. These rare connections remind us that love, at its most profound, is never merely personal. It's the universe's way of bringing together precisely the elements needed for mutual awakening. The women who courageously follow this mysterious pull, while maintaining self-awareness along the journey, often find it leads not just to a partner but to a more complete version of themselves. What begins as a simple attraction often reveals itself as a complex tapestry of psychological patterns, archetypal energies, and unconscious longings. The 6 signs we've explored, the craving for emotional security, the draw toward authority and guidance, the nurturing instinct, the preference for deep conversations, the association with protection and safety, and the mysterious, fateful pull, are not mere coincidences. They are signposts pointing toward deeper truths about your inner world. Carl Jung's wisdom reminds us that attraction is never random. It is a mirror reflecting the unmet needs, unresolved complexes, and hidden archetypes within your own psyche. If these signs resonate with you, it may be worth pausing and asking yourself, what is my soul trying to tell me through this attraction? Are you seeking a father figure's stability, a mentor's wisdom, or a protector's strength? Or is this pull toward older men an invitation to cultivate these qualities within yourself, to integrate the wisdom, confidence, and security you admire in them? Jungian psychology teaches us that relationships serve as mirrors for growth, revealing the parts of ourselves we have yet to fully embrace. For those who see themselves in these patterns, there is no need for judgment, only curiosity. Attraction is a compass, not a verdict. It guides you toward experiences that will challenge, heal, and expand you. Whether you've always been drawn to older men or are just beginning to notice this tendency, your desires hold valuable clues about your emotional and psychological landscape. If this exploration has sparked new insights, let's keep the conversation going. Leave a comment below. Do you relate to these signs? Have you experienced this kind of attraction in your own life? Your stories and reflections add depth to this discussion, and who knows, your experience might resonate with someone else on a similar journey. And if you found this dive into Jungian psychology illuminating, make sure to like and subscribe. There's so much more to explore: the hidden forces behind love, attachment, and the unconscious patterns that shape our relationships. Until next time, remember, the heart's desires are never shallow. They are whispers from the soul, guiding you toward wholeness. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.